What emotional withdrawal actually looks like. They didn't disappear. They just gave you less. And somehow, less is all you can think about. They still reply. They still show up. They're still around. Just not the way they used to be. And that's what makes it so confusing. Because if they had completely left, you could accept it. If they had clearly rejected you, you could process it. But they didn't. They gave you just enough to keep wondering. Just enough to keep hoping. Just enough to make you ask one question over and over again. What changed? Maybe it started with a simple conversation. Someone who seemed genuinely interested in you. They remembered small details. They laughed at your jokes. They checked in on you. Talking to them felt easy. Natural. Comfortable. Without realizing it, they became part of your routine. You expected their messages. You looked forward to their calls. You shared parts of yourself that you didn't normally share. And little by little, the connection started to matter. Then something shifted. Not all at once. Slowly. Almost invisibly. The messages became shorter. The enthusiasm became quieter. The response times became longer. You noticed it immediately. But you told yourself not to overthink. They're probably busy. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe you're imagining it. So you waited. But deep down, you could feel it. Something was different. And that's when the mental spiral begins. You start checking your phone more often. Reading old conversations. Looking for clues. Trying to find the exact moment things changed. You replay interactions in your head. Analyzing words. Analyzing timing. Analyzing silence. And the more you think about it, the more attached you seem to become. Which feels strange. Because shouldn't less attention create less attachment? Shouldn't distance make it easier to move on? Yet for many people, the opposite happens. The less available someone becomes, the more space they occupy in your mind. Why? Because your brain isn't reacting to certainty. It's reacting to uncertainty. Human beings can handle painful truths better than unanswered questions. A clear ending hurts. But confusion lingers. When something remains unresolved, the mind keeps returning to it. Trying to finish the story. Trying to make sense of it. Trying to find closure. That's why emotional withdrawal can feel so powerful. You're not only losing connection. You're losing certainty. And certainty is something the brain desperately wants. Think about it. If someone looked you in the eye and said, "I don't feel the same way anymore," it would hurt. But eventually, you would know where you stand. There would be nothing left to solve. Emotional withdrawal is different. The person doesn't fully leave. But they don't fully stay either. They're present. Yet absent. Close. Yet distant. Available. Yet unavailable. And because the situation remains unclear, your mind keeps searching for answers. This creates a cycle. They pull away. You think about them more. You seek reassurance. They become more distant. Now you think about them even more. Eventually, your emotional energy becomes focused on understanding the situation instead of experiencing the relationship. And here's the insight most people miss. You're not chasing the person. You're chasing clarity. Read that again. You're not chasing the person. You're chasing clarity. What you're attached to isn't always them. It's the unanswered question. It's the uncertainty. It's the hope that one more conversation will finally explain everything. But emotional withdrawal rarely provides the explanation you're waiting for. And that's why people stay emotionally stuck. Not because the connection was necessarily extraordinary. Because the ending was unclear. Then another mistake happens. People start confusing emotional intensity with emotional connection. The anxiety feels deep. The longing feels meaningful. The emotional highs and lows feel powerful. So they assume the connection must be special. But intensity and connection are not the same thing. A roller coaster feels intense. That doesn't mean it's safe. Many emotionally unavailable dynamics feel intense because they are inconsistent. One day there's warmth. The next day there's distance. One day there's attention. The next day there's silence. One day they move closer. The next day they move away. That inconsistency creates emotional tension. And emotional tension often feels like attachment. But what feels like connection is sometimes just unpredictability. Look closely at the pattern. They reply. Then disappear. They get close. Then distant. They show interest. Then withdraw it. Your emotions rise and fall with their behavior. And slowly, your focus shifts from building a relationship to managing uncertainty. That's the trap. Because healthy connection usually doesn't feel like a mystery. Healthy connection feels clear. You know where you stand. You don't spend hours decoding messages. You don't need to guess someone's intentions every day. You don't have to earn basic attention. Consistency may not create the same emotional rush as unpredictability. But consistency creates trust. And trust creates security. That's what real connection is built on. Not confusion. Not anxiety. Not mixed signals. Security. Presence. Reliability. Emotional availability. So what does emotional withdrawal actually look like? It looks like someone becoming less emotionally present without clearly explaining why. It looks like shorter conversations. Longer silences. Less effort. Less warmth. Less certainty. And because it happens gradually, it's easy to mistake confusion for connection. But once you understand the pattern, something changes. You stop asking, how do I get them back? And start asking, why am I giving so much energy to someone who keeps pulling away? You stop measuring love by how much pain it causes. You stop measuring value by how difficult someone is to keep. You stop chasing mixed signals. And start paying attention to consistency. Because real connection doesn't leave you constantly guessing. Real connection doesn't require endless analysis. Real connection doesn't survive on uncertainty. It grows through presence, effort, trust, and clarity. And the moment you stop chasing uncertainty, its power over your mind starts disappearing. Because the truth is this. The strongest connections are not the ones that keep you confused. They're the ones that make you feel safe enough to stop wondering.